You have a nice one? Yeah, miss it.
So Baruch Hashem, we are happy to return, happy to see you all, including you. we missed the heat wave. No, I was here for the heat wave. Yeah, I was here for the heat wave, and we're continuing what I think we said we will continue last time. And if it's not the same thing, so I think 2 or 3 weeks have passed since then, so you probably forgot where we promised to continue, so it's fine, I guess. And the topic of today is stopping or having a conversation. What happens if you need to talk or stop or pause in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei? Can you do it? Can't you do it? And we mentioned many times there's a difference between Psukei de Zimra, the blessings of Shema, and Shmoneh Esrei. When we say tefillah, so when we say tefillah, we mean from the morning blessings until Aleinu Shabeach, right? That's the tefillah. It's true, it's part of davening. All of it is part of davening. When we mean tefillah by the main part of the tefillah, so that's the Amida, Shmoneh Esrei. In Shmoneh Esrei, we are standing in front of a king. We mentioned a few weeks ago about getting dressed nicely before we go and daven Shmoneh Esrei. More important than Kriyat Shema. So also when we daven Shmoneh Esrei, we shouldn't pause, we shouldn't stop. Speak, talk as we should talk in a fluent and way. And I'm not sure if you go to a meeting with a prime minister or even any minister, the mayor. You start talking and then you pause for a minute or two, wait, and then continue. It's not, we want things to be flowing. And also, not just flowing, it's also each blessing is connected to the blessing before and the blessing afterwards. It's true that they stand alone, each one has its own meaning, but in Masechet Megillah, more or less the middle of Masechet Megillah, Daf Tetzayin, if I remember correctly, the Gemara brings maybe Tetvav, brings the reason for the order of the blessings. So there is a reason for the order, each blessing brings to the other one, and that's why we shouldn't pause in between, in the middle of the blessings, between the blessings. That's the basic halacha. That's probably a very known halacha. A person shouldn't stop in davening, even if a Jewish king is asking, "How are you doing?" He shouldn't answer. Why does the Shulchan Aruch mention a Jewish king?
Because it might be different for a non-Jewish king.
Makes him, you better answer, right? Especially in those days. He might just take out a sword and kill the person. So a Jewish king, he knows, he's now davening, okay, I respect that. And the Shulchan Aruch continues, but a king of a non-Jewish person, non-Jewish king, he might harm the person who's davening, therefore, you should stop, or you can stop. But he says, even then, try to avoid it. For example, if you're now towards the end of davening, make the blessings a bit shorter. Say the beginning of the blessing, the center, and the end, and just make it a bit shorter. If you can daven a bit faster, if you can maybe move, if a person is standing next to the road, why is he standing next to the road? He's hitchhiking or any other reason. And he sees now people coming, and he knows if I stay here for 2 more minutes, I will have to talk because they're asking what's happening. He can just walk away before the people come, and that way he will not need to pause in talking. So from this halacha already we can see there's 2 levels of pausing, of stopping. We can talk, which that's the worst, and we can walk away in the middle of davening, which that is sometimes acceptable. So if there's a need to walk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei, we can walk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei.
If a snake is at your feet.
That will be the next halacha. So let's read the next halacha, and then we'll go back to walking.
Okay.
Says the Shulchan Aruch, the next halacha. It's the next 2 halachot. So we'll learn 2 more halachot, and then we'll learn. A person is standing on the path, and there's a wagon now coming. He should move away. And not stop. Don't say, "Hey, wait, I'm here." Slow down. He should just move away. Again, we can see the same idea that walking in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei is better than talking in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. The Shulchan Aruch says, although walking is a bit easier, a bit more preferred, we shouldn't just, okay, I'm to walk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. Okay, Shmoneh Esrei, we stand in a space and we just close the window. To stay in our own place in Shmoneh Esrei, and only if there is a need, only then we will walk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. Okay, so we can walk if needed, but only if needed. And in a few moments, we'll get to a few more examples that perhaps more common of, maybe not very common, but a bit more common for walking in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. Just the next halacha about the snake. Says the Shulchan Aruch, even if there's a snake around his legs, even then he shouldn't stop. Now, we live in cities. For us, a tiny snake, help, help, there's a snake, right? In those days, when they see a snake, they know to differentiate between the poisonous ones and the non-poisonous ones. And actually, quite a few snakes are quite helpful. Okay, they're helpful for the farmers. Quite of them, for example, black snakes. They're common is relatively common in Israel. I think they're pythons, black snakes. Not a programming python, not the huge pythons. I think it's a python. I'm not sure. I'm not a snake expert. They are considered, I wouldn't say friendly snakes. Okay, I wouldn't start a speech or take them to a coffee with one of them. Maybe not drink coffee, but they aren't considered harmful snakes. Okay, so when they see a snake, it doesn't mean about the snake which now might bite the person, and it's a danger. It's a snake. Okay, fine, snake. When you see those black, how do you call those things? Centipedes. Marbe Raglaim, walking around. Before I came to Ma'ale Edomim, I said, what are those strange creatures doing here, right? And are they poisonous? Do they have something in them? And then you just get used to them, and you see sometimes kids playing with them, right? And you watch kids, but you passed the age, but you forgot maybe when you were a kid also you like to play with them or with other interesting creatures. Perhaps not. It's true. Okay, yeah, it's true. So that's what the snake means in the times of Chazal. Unless, again, you know it's poisonous. And how do I know? Because the Shulchan Aruch continues. But for scorpion, you can stop. Why? A scorpion is considered more dangerous, right? And also by a snake, says the Shulchan Aruch. If you can see on the snake that he now might bite you, you can stop indefinitely. Okay, so that's just to put things in perspectives. Okay, today we don't have so many snakes. So in the last time you saw a snake walking around we live in a city.
You see in the paper, two snake bites week or two.
What?
In Israel, they reported a few snake bites in Israel in the past week or so.
Yeah.
You know, people got pretty sick.
Around Shavuot, that's I think more the Pesach Shavuot. That's the dangerous time with them. But some of them are fine, some of them are not. You just have to know which ones.
Scorpions here.
We do have scorpions here. Yeah, we do have scorpions here. Okay, so it's a matter of danger. Obviously, if there's danger, you can pause. When's the last time you saw a king and you had to stop your davening for saying hello for a king, or walk away to avoid the king coming? Doesn't happen often, right? And I said to you that this halacha is a bit relevant. Okay, let's take a more relevant example. I'm now in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. Started davening, didn't take a siddur, I got late to Mincha, Shachrit to Mincha, okay, to Mincha. And then I realized it's Ya'aleh Ve'avor, it's Rosh Chodesh, and I realized I don't remember Ya'aleh Ve'avor off by heart. Or it's Shabbos, and I open my siddur, start Shmoneh Esrei, and then I realize that one of the pages is missing with the bracha of Shabbat. So I know the weekday bracha off by heart, but I don't know the blessings for Shabbat off by heart. Can I now walk and take a siddur out of the cupboard, Australian, or should I stay in my place? That's really more common halacha, right? Another example that could happen for parents for young kids or grandparents for young kids who come to shul and the grandparents are in charge of them. So you're davening in shul, Shmoneh Esrei, and all of a sudden the kid starts making noise. And just to make the story a bit harder, you just now started Shmoneh Esrei half a minute ago. You're in the blessing of Ata Kadosh. to get to the end of Shmoneh Esrei, you still have quite a few blessings. Now it's making noise for everyone. Can you just pick him up and walk outside of shul? And the answer, according to what we learned, is yes. Yes. Walking in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei is less of a problem compared to talking in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. We'll soon discuss a bit more talking, but walking in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei, if needed, we can walk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. If I need a siddur, I can go and grab a siddur. If I have my son, my grandson, granddaughter, okay, to making noise, I can hold them and go out of shul so they don't bother others. If I say I'm davening Shmoneh Esrei and I see a siddur that fell on the floor, and it's bothering me, the fact that there's a siddur on the floor in front of me, I can't have my kavana, I can't have intention to daven when I see a siddur just in front of me. So I can walk, pick up the siddur, and continue with Shmoneh Esrei. And so walking Shmoneh Esrei, it's not something we do, it's not something we encourage to do, but if we need to walk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei, we can walk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. Although it's called Amida, and Amida means standing, not walking, if we need to, we can walk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei.
Can't walk back.
We can't walk back, right? If you get there, you pick up the siddur, and then you daven there. Unless, let's say in our place, the siddurim are just in the entrance. If you stay there, people will bother you to daven, so you can walk back or move back.
So if the sirens go off,
If the sirens go off, if the sirens go off while you are davening Shmoneh Esrei, the best thing will be to walk out while you're davening Shmoneh Esrei. Usually we have at least 2 minutes to get to anywhere, so we have time. Another example we saw in the past is sometimes, very rare occasions, one can even daven Shmoneh Esrei while he is walking, not preferred, but if one needs, and that's the only time he has to daven, and if he can't stop for any reason it will be, he can daven while he is walking. But that's just give this idea of walking sometimes is permitted even while the Amida. Now you're going back to talking in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei or being silent in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. So we'll start with the halacha of being silent. And there's a machloket between the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. So the Shulchan Aruch holds that whenever a person is silent, he stops in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei, the amount of time it will take him to finish Shmoneh Esrei, so he needs to repeat. For example, I stopped in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. It'll take me about 2 minutes to finish Shmoneh Esrei, and I was silent for 2.5 minutes. So I need to go back to the beginning of Shmoneh Esrei. So being silent, according to the Shulchan Aruch, being silent in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei splits Shmoneh Esrei into two. It splits Shmoneh Esrei into two, and we want it to be one part. Therefore, if I split Shmoneh Esrei into two by just being silent, I need to go back and repeat Shmoneh Esrei.
like being silent, I mean just stopping.
Just stopping and they're thinking about whatever it is, about the summer in Ma'ale Domim, the winter in Ma'ale Domim, whatever. So we calculate the time from how long it takes me from the beginning of Shmoneh Esrei to the end of Shmoneh Esrei. If I'm a fast davener, so 2 minutes. If I'm a slower davener, maybe 4 minutes, each one with his own pace, right? So if I'm somewhere in Shmoneh Esrei, and let's say it takes me, on average, it takes me, let's say 3 minutes to finish Shmoneh Esrei, and I pause for 3 minutes in silent. I didn't say a word. According to the Shulchan Aruch, I need to repeat the Shmoneh Esrei and go back from the beginning. That's the Shulchan Aruch. The Ramah, I see you're bothered by the halacha.
Yeah, halacha is a halacha. I just wonder if you were at Modim and you just decide to think.
So we calculate the amount of time it takes you from the beginning of Shmoneh Esrei until the end of Shmoneh Esrei, not from where you're standing now.
Right. So 4 minutes to do Shmoneh.
Yeah.
3 minutes to Modim. You're now at Modim.
And now Modim. Okay, let's say it takes me 4 minutes to say Shmoneh Esrei, I daven for 3 minutes. In Modim, if I stop for 4 minutes, then I need to repeat everything again. not for 1 minute. We don't count from my point until the end. We count from the beginning until the end.
Total amount.
The total amount of Shmoneh Esrei. And the idea is, although it's 18 or actually 19 brachot, in the end they're all wrapped to be one prayer of the Amida. Okay, so that's the Shulchan Aruch. The Rama half holds like the Shulchan Aruch. He also agrees that if one was silent for some time, for the total amount of time it takes him to say Shmoneh Esrei, needs to repeat. But the Rama adds one more condition. So the Rama will be more lenient. And he says only if being silent was because of an honest, because a person couldn't daven. Only then he needs to repeat. What's the logic behind it? If I decide I get to Modim and I try to think about whatever, about davening, about stock markets, about whatever. So theoretically, any moment I can go back to daven. So I never left davening. But if now there's something preventing me from davening, so I can't go, okay, I'm going back to daven. Something is preventing me from davening, so I can't daven. Okay, I can't daven. Therefore, according to the Rama, only if this being silence, the sound of silence, only if I was silenced because some kind of honest, something prevented me from davening, only then I need to repeat. Only then I need to repeat. An example could be, one was davening, and then they brought into the shul, happened to be in the shul, something with a terrible smell. And you can't daven in a place like that, and he doesn't have any way to go to. So then he paused for 4 minutes. He needs to repeat davening, because something was preventing him from davening. Okay, that's the Rama. That's the Rama. So that's about pausing. What do we learn from here?
According to the Ramah, does it make a difference how long it takes you to say Shmoneh Esrei? Or
Yeah, the same idea of the Shulchan Aruch. If it takes
even
you,
though you stopped because there was a reason, like a terrible smell, and if it's just for 2 minutes, you still have to go back.
No. It's also, the Rama has two conditions. Also, you stopped for the amount of time it takes you to say Shmoneh Esrei from the beginning to the end. Plus another condition, the reason you stopped because something was preventing you from davening. There's an argument, if there's something internal, external, we won't go into it. It's just the general idea of the Rama. Okay? So the Rama is more lenient. Okay, the Rama is more lenient. I can stop for 10 minutes because I just decided to pause. I was dreaming. Okay, I was daydreaming. I stopped for 10 minutes according to Shulchan Aruch. You need to repeat according to the Rama. Just continue
And
from
if
your.
it's just concentrating on you want to think about what's feeling when you're davening and you stop to.
So here, if a person is thinking of davening, seems like it's part of davening. He's thinking of davening. Because he's really into davening here. Rav Kanievsky writes that it's hard to understand from his language if it's lechatchila or it's fine. He says, if I pause because I want to think now before Modim and I want to acknowledge all the good things Hashem did for us. It took me 5 minutes to think about all the things I want to thank Hashem. So that's fine because I'm part of davening. According to Rav Kanievsky, it's hard to understand from his language if it's great, do it, or you shouldn't do it, but if you did pause to have more intention in davening, so it's fine. Okay, so that's because ideally, before we say Shmoneh Esrei, we should already focus our minds, not in Shmoneh Esrei.
Things and you're davening and it brings things
Right.
to mind.
Yeah.
Focus.
It's true. Suddenly it brings things to mind. Therefore, says Rav Kanievsky, I'm still part of davening. Okay? The reason why, or one of the reasons why, pausing causes us to return back because we split davening into two. But if I'm all the time, my mind is part of davening, so I'm part of davening, right? I'm always there. I'm always in davening. What happens if we talk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei? Baruch Hashem doesn't happen often, but I sometimes do see people talk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. Do they need to repeat? How much do they need to repeat? There are a few opinions here. Okay, So you won't go into all of the details of the opinions. And hopefully you'll forgive me for not going into all of the details of the opinions. Okay. So we have two options, maybe three options. One, in general. Okay, let's just go to the options. One, someone said a sentence or just a few words. That's the one option. I didn't think about it by mistake, okay? Second option is I spoke a lot, I schmoozed, and it took me 4 minutes of a schmooze in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. And the third option is by purposely, by mezid, even by mistake. I decided not to talk in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. So let's start from the easier case. If a person just said a sentence, a few words, a word in the middle of the blessing, he needs to repeat, but not everything, just that blessing. Okay, just that blessing. So if in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei, I don't know, I'm saying Baruch Aleinu, and my son comes, or my daughter comes, and they want something, I say to them, shh, I'm davening, can't you see? And then I realize, whoops, I spoke in the middle of davening. I just said a few words. I need to repeat only that blessing, so I go to the beginning of that blessing. I do not need to go to the beginning of the davening, just for the beginning of that blessing. But if he spoke, I had a long discussion, because he thought it's permitted or whatever, he needs to go back to the beginning of the davening according to Shulchan Aruch. Okay, as I said, there's a few details here. We won't go into all of them. Ramah, Shulchan Aruch, he needs to go back, in general speaking, to the beginning of the davening. Okay? If he had a long speech in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. Why am I saying that, although it's not accurate, that he needs to go back? Just to give us in mind, we shouldn't speak in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. If a person speaks by mezid, like up to now he spoke by mistake, his son, daughter, young child came and wanted something, and without thinking, he said to them, be quiet. And then, oops, what did I do? So he just repeats the beginning of that blessing. But if on purpose, he wanted now to say this, his friend comes, he says, I want to tell him something about the soccer team or the basketball. He knows he's davening, he knows he shouldn't do it, but he wants to do it. So the Mishnah Berurah, in that case, he has a debate. Does he go back to the beginning of the blessing because he just said something small, or because he did it on purpose? Okay, b'mezid, he split davening and needs to go back to the beginning. Okay, so we have here a few details. What's the bottom line? One should be careful, very careful, not to speak in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. We are standing in front of a king, and we're standing in front of a king, and although we call it Shmoneh Esrei, and with that we'll conclude, we call it Shmoneh Esrei.
So if the king says Shalom Aleichem to you in the middle of.
I'm speaking to a higher king. I'm speaking to the king of kings.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just conclude with something maybe good to know. Or even Kaddish, even Baruch Hu in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei, we don't answer. But after I said Yehiyu Ratzon Reifi, I finished Sim Shalom, I said Yehiyu Ratzon Reifi, I can answer Kedusha, okay? Especially the verses Kadosh, 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 Baruch, Imloch. I can answer Baruch Hu, and I can even say Amen on the blessing of Atak Kadosh. Okay, so Shmoneh Esrei at the 18 or 19 blessings. As soon as I said Yehiyu Ratzon, as soon as I started the Elokai Netzor, so then, although I'm still standing, I'm still as if in Shmoneh Esrei, that's not real part of Shmoneh Esrei, and I can talk for saying things of Kedusha.
An answer then.
Yeah. But when I answer Kedusha, so I don't say everything, like the Kadesh Shmicha or like Tishcha, I just say the Psukim, Kadosh Kadosh, and Baruch, and Imloch. Okay, even if I didn't start saying Yehiyu Ratzon, you may feel as soon as I finish the blessing of Sim Shalom. And that's important to know because sometimes we daven slowly or slower than the Chazan, and sometimes he gets to Kedusha before us. So when we get to that part, we can answer part of Kedusha.